Hey everybody, and welcome to a exciting edition. It's another live edition of the Figure Guys podcast. I'm David Fine, live here in the Beacon Hill Studios on Bad Street, USA in Atlanta, Georgia. Folks, you thought last week's episode was amazing. This one is going to be even better. It's an all-Australian edition, except for myself and the voice of our generation, the great Tyler Peters. It's going to be fun. We're talking to the guys from Figs Down Under. It's going to be great. And it's all coming up next right here on the Figure Guys podcast. Welcome into another exciting edition of the Figure Guys podcast. Each week, we sit down with the world's best figure customizers and figure collectors. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy another exciting edition of the Figure Guys. And remember, folks, playing and talking about your wrestling figures has never been this much fun. Welcome into another exciting edition of the Figure Guys podcast. Of course, I am David Fine, live from the Beacon Hill Studios on Patch Street, USA, the home of the fabulous Freebirds. The man to my right in the video version that you can, of course, watch live, you can watch on demand. The voice of our generation, the great Tyler Peters. The man below me, the man who looks like he added a couple of years to his life, the great Zash Man. And the great man to his right, the author and the creator of the LJN Bible, the great Brutus Valentine. Guys, it's already been an exciting edition of the podcast pre-show. I learned a new thing. The Australians, they moved their clock backwards at Easter. We moved our clocks forward the last time this happened. I mean, just get away with that, and we can all be on the right time. I mean, it was interesting. We had both of the guests. It's going to be an amazing show. The guys from Figs Down Under are on the show, James and Chris. And they were on with Tyler and myself. And I said, where's Zash? Where's Brutus? It's going to be a fun edition. It's going to be two Aussies versus two Americans. But come to find out, it's an hour behind in Australia. So thanks for coming on the show, Zash. Next time I will look ahead and I will do my due diligence to know that you changed time this past week.
It didn't even dawn on me, David. I thought, hold on a second, you guys had daylight savings a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We had daylight savings this week. Shouldn't it even out? But no, it seems like we've gone 2 hours behind you guys now. So I don't know. And by the way, what's going on here? Why is the apprentice in my spot, David?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm the two-eye steer.
Exactly. He's right. He's right. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Right. We're going to need to get a bigger box, but I mean, but the guests that we have on the program, I mean, you know what? I have come to find out the Australians, they're very amazing people. They're very hospitable, and they can work us into their schedule. You know, we're going to have them on later, but then we moved them up. They're that important to us to this week because of some changes. But I am so glad that they're on the program this week. I mean, we did have the most viewers that we've ever had from our episode last week. I don't know why, but we're gonna not talk about that. That's in the past. This is the future. So I should want to introduce right here on the Figure Guys podcast.
I'm really excited about this episode, guys. Look, I'd like to say hello to Brutus. I've said hello to Tyler because he was in my spot and I've kicked him out. But hello, Brutus. How are you, buddy?
That's okay. I'm in my rightful spot down the bottom.
Very good.
At the end, where the job should be.
It's like Hollywood Squares. Did you ever watch Hollywood Squares?
We had a thing called Celebrity Squares. But Hollywood Squares, I believe Paul Lind was the big comedy sort of person on that. So
yeah, I don't know who I would be. Well, Tyler's the apprentice, and Zash is he's just a freaking man.
I'm just in the bottom. That's where I need to be. I'm in the bottom.
You're always. Are you trying to say you're always on the bottom?
Well,
anyway,
nothing.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm excited about these boys coming on. This is the biggest dedicated Australian group on WWE figures, the Figs Down Under group. If even you guys in the US, I'm sure they'd be inviting to people all over the world. Get on there and have a look at the Figs Down Under. They're fantastic. Without further ado, let's get the boys on, James and Chris. Here they are.
How are you, boys?
Doing well.
Fellas, how are you? Now, you guys are in. You listeners are in for a treat here because I've heard these guys talk. They're great talkers. They've got their own little show. Is that on once a fortnight or once a week, boys?
Yeah, once a fortnight.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that show, huh?
Well, Chris, do you want to kick off first by explaining the Figs Down Under, where it all began? Because Chris is our solid founder.
Well, they've just found a need. There's so many good American Facebook groups and even international Facebook groups, and it costs us a lot of money to get figures from the US to Australia in shipping and exchange rates. So I sort of started to think about, well, how can we do this better? There's always going to be people who have things here already, or they've been on holidays when we used to be able to travel. And thinking, well, how can we connect with each other? And all of the things I could find in Australia were mainly buy and sell pages, and not sort of figure related, more just generic wrestling related. So I already knew about 50 to 100 Australian collectors through buying and selling before, and I just thought, well, let's just see what happens and start something up. And so started it up, and people laughed, and a lot of people who I talk to regularly who are Aussies would laugh and say, oh, well, you might get 30 or 40 people. That'd be great. And then within about 6 months, we had 150. And then James and I've known James for a long time and asked him to join me as the admin of the group. And suddenly we kept growing. I think we're close to 600 Australians now and New Zealanders. We let the Kiwis in because they've got nowhere else to go. And it's just getting bigger and bigger, and we've got a great community of people. We have very clear boundaries of buying and selling and fair practice and no scalping and things just to promote a harmonious community.
And how old is your group now? Is it a couple of years old?
It's about 2 years. I think 2 years in September. I think 1 year I was watching the AFL here, the Aussie footy. My team had been eliminated early, so I thought, rather than watching the footy, I might as well create a Facebook group. So,
I heard you like your AFL, mate. I'm a bit of a rugby league man myself.
James is rugby league.
Yeah, we're from Sydney, mate.
Yeah, we don't play it here. We had just a quick lesson for the Americans. This is what happens. I'm in the west coast of Australia.
Hold on.
We had a rugby league team in the national competition, and they kicked them out after 3 years. We had a rugby union team in the national competition, and they kicked them out as well. So how do they want people to support that game over here?
Rugby union's lost for us, mate.
Yeah.
But Tyler, you've got some important questions to ask the boys.
Yeah, Chris and James, it's great to have you guys on here. And I just wanted to ask you, what led to this passion of collecting? I know it's probably a question asked a lot, but we're just all curious and interested, how did this develop, this whole process of collecting figures and stuff and all that? That's really what I wanted to kick off things with.
You want me to go first, Chris?
You go, James. You've got the best collection out of the two of us.
No, thanks, mate. Look, for me, I vividly remember seeing my first bit of wrestling in 1986. It's one of those moments in time where I was 6 years old, and I just remember being just drawn to the television. I remember my parents got the old this is 1986, and mind you, the TVs were a big, massive, with a big part at the back. And I remember my dad tuning the channels in, and 9 Wide World of Sports popped in. And I remember it was Junkyard Dog, Hulk Hogan, and Big John started. I can't remember the exact match. I just remember those characters. And since then, I wouldn't say I fell in love with wrestling. I was just really attracted to the whole the character of wrestling, because it was just, even as a young kid, I knew it wasn't real, God forbid. But I had fun with it. It gave me a laugh. It gave me excitement. And it was something that connected my dad and I. My dad loved it all his life. And it's just something that connected my father and I. And it's that passion and for old school wrestling has never gone away. Nostalgia is what we're addicted to. And just to add to what Chris said earlier in our group, we're not all about sales. We're not about, making money and people profiting from this game. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think what sells is nostalgia, and that's why that's why this podcast popping up and collecting is all about nostalgia, because we're all We're all grown men now. We're busy, and we're all looking for that time in our life that just made sense and was so easy.
I think for me, it was more about 5 or 6 years ago. My parents moved house, and they were going through all the stuff I'd left there from when I left in my late teens. And there was a big box of Hasbros. And as soon as I saw them, I thought, I need to get the rest of these. And then you start sort of piecing together the collection and thinking, like, I first looked on eBay and I thought, I wonder if these are worth anything. And this is back when Hasbros were cheap as anything. And so thought, I'll start picking them up, and then I can give them to my son. About the same time my son was born, and always loving wrestling, loving the theatrics, loving the characters. To grow up in the 80s and early 90s, you got peak characterization and peak theatrics. So look, when my son was born, I thought, well, I'll put this set together, then we can look at them and play with them as he grows up. And then the addiction became real. And then I started buying on card, then I started buying LJNs, and I started buying Elites. And all of a sudden, my wife is threatening to throw them all out. So it's love it. Just love the characters. It's probably connected my son and I. So James saying about he's connected with his dad. My son now loves watching the shows. Unfortunately, some of them I'm still trying to give him the Peacock treatment and try and keep him away from some of the stuff on there. But he's only 6. But love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So,
hey, thank you. Yeah.
So Chris, I was going to ask your son. I believe his name is Doink Savage. That was it for me. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good joke. My wife wouldn't let me name him Macho Man, so Macho Man Maddock was off the card. So
yes, well, it rolls off the tongue pretty well. But what both James and Chris have said is there's been an intergenerational connection with wrestling here in Australia, and it goes back to the 60s and the 70s with the World Championship Wrestling, and I've mentioned this on a previous show where they'd come out on tours, and that was run by Jim Barnett, who was a very famous US guy and went back to the US as well. And then when it hit again, which was Channel O back then, but Channel 10 screened WrestleMania in early April, it just became an absolute phenomenon, and the kids got into it so big. And then, of course, we had less access to live Hasbro era WWF wrestling, but we had a lot more access to Hasbro figures at the time. And the kids could find other ways of getting it through VCRs and then DVDs and accessing pay-per-views that way. So
a lot of the wrestling I watched, I do remember the Wide World of Sports, like James said. I remember it popping up there every so often and getting all excited because that was so random. We didn't know whether it was going to come on or when it came on. They just randomly whacked it on here and there. That's a Sunday, for the Americans listening, that's a Sunday sports show that used to be on back in the day. But a lot of the wrestling I watched, I didn't get to watch live. I had to get the DVD or the VHS tapes from the video shop. And I think I rented out every single one of them about 10 times because I'd just rewatch them. So that was how I watched a lot of my wrestling matches back in the day.
And one of the biggest frustrations as an Aussie was that the WWF magazine would come out here 3 months late, but the VHS would come out 6 months. So you'd get a magazine and you'd know the results.
Yeah.
So you'd go, even if you didn't buy it, you could go to the newsagent, you could read the magazine, find out who's won the most recent Royal Rumble, and then wait 3 more months till you could watch it on VHS. So.
It's funny you say that. I remember at my local Video Easy stores. That was the big chain here in Australia, and my local newsagent used to have our number on our home number. This is pre-mobile phones, of course. Home notes. Any time a new WrestleMania or a pay-per-view would come in the video store or the magazine would come in, they'd ring the home number, and Dad would send me down and go get them. But those are, again, going back to this nostalgia. I can still smell the smell of the popcorn in a video store, and place the arcade machines there. And
arcade machines, that's right.
Yeah, you pick the video up, and you just couldn't wait to get it home, and that's all. That's all missing now, and I think that's it shouldn't be forgotten because it's a huge part of, I guess, all of our childhoods really. Yet the
Yeah,
kids these
absolutely.
days won't. I sound like an old bastard now, but the kids these days won't have those memories. They'll have their own, of course, but I don't know. It'd be nice to not, somehow we can replicate those that they're never forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, Chris and James, I just had this question. I was just thinking, I was like, I know you collect Mattels and LJNs, but harking back to your youth, like you said, James and Chris, what was your first figure that you were able to collect? And I mean, and did you think back then you would be so addicted? Like you said, it's an addiction. I mean, it's not a bad addiction. I mean, it can be bad for marriages and relationships if your wife or your girlfriend come to find out that you collect wrestling figurines, Tyler, and then then you get a divorce. But who and what and when and which figure was your first? Like you say in a relationship, who was your first figure that you collected, Chris and James?
You want me to go first, James?
Yeah, you go.
So I told this story on our show a few weeks ago. My brother, I had an older brother who was more into wrestling than me, but now couldn't pay him to watch anything. He just is completely moved away from it. And he had a Jake the Snake Hasbro and a $1 Million Man Hasbro. And as soon as he had those, I wanted them. Like I wanted them, and I wanted his figures, but they were his. And then eventually I did get those. But I went on a holiday with my nana, which is just the thing you do, into a country town here in WA, and my parents had given me $50, which as a 10-year-old or maybe an 8-year-old, that's like $1 million. And they said, when you're on holiday with your nana, make sure you take her out and buy her dinner. Like wherever you go for a meal, you pay, and that's our way of saying thank you for her taking you. But anyone who ever met my nana, you should have none of that. She would never let me pay for anything. And so on the last day of our trip, which I hadn't spent a cent, she said, let's go to the toy shop and you can buy whatever you want. So we walked into a Toy World in Kalgoorlie, which is a gold mining town here in Western Australia. And there on this beautiful rotating display was just packed with Series 1 and 2 Hasbros. And I think I got 5 at the time. There was a Hulk 1, a Warrior 1, Hacksaw, didn't get Jake the Snake or $1 Million Man because my brother already had them. I think I got a Hot Rod, and there was probably one more who escapes me right now. And once you start to build the stable, then you think, now I need the next guys. And then my friend across the road had the Bushwhackers. So I need to get the Bushwhackers. This person had the Rockers, which, by the way, were the worst Hasbros going around. And no one wanted the Rockers back then, but they it just keeps adding. And I was hooked from the start. As soon as I had those in my hand, before that, we had thumb wrestlers, we had a few LJNs, but nothing like the Hasbros. The Hasbros are what really got me into it.
Yeah. So for me, actually, my first figures were LJNs. I don't remember ever seeing them in the store, because when were LJNs released? 1984.
Rubus?
1985. We got them
85.
down here for Christmas, 85.
So my first LJN, I remember having him, and I used to take him everywhere, was Junkyard Dog. Yeah. And he used to go everywhere with me. And I remember in Christmas 1988 or 1987, I got and I've still got a photo of it actually, a Hulk Hogan. But all up, I remember no matter where I went, whether it was a friend's house, relative's house, everyone had LJNs. They're in the backyard, I had the ring. I had all those. I didn't have many LJN figures, but I had the ring. I probably had about 6 LJN figures all up, and they stayed with me for many, many years. And I think it goes from age, right? I think then you just kind of you follow whatever your parents take you to, and they buy you stuff, whatever you're interested in at the time. But I think when Hasbro's come out, it was 1990, so I was 10 years old. And I think at 10 years old, you're starting to develop a bit of your personality's there. You've got a bit of a mind of your own, right? But I remember, this is all pre-internet, of course, but I remember LJNs just disappeared, and I forgot all about them. Still loved wrestling. But walking into a Toy World, which was a local store here, and just seeing Series 2 WWF Hasbro figures, and I was literally blown away by what I was looking at. And my nan at the time, my nana took me out, and she said, you can only pick 2. So as a 10-year-old with the with a face full of a Series 2 sets, I had to pick two, and the first two I picked were Hulk Hogan, which is the bear hug Hulk Hogan, and the $1 Million Man in the green tux. And I still have those figures loose, mint, in my collection today. So they are very, very special to me. But that was my first introduction to Hasbro's, and from there it was just mind blown. And what are these figures, and where do they come from? And you don't, as Chris said, I think it was a February edition of the 1991 magazine, where Hulk and Warrior are on the front cover after a Survivor Series match, and there's an article in there where they're painting the action figures, and they're they're writing an article on the actual Hasbro TV commercial, and that was my first introduction to the Hasbro figures, and it just honestly that feeling of walking into a store and seeing them has never left me, and I think it's something that I've tried to capture every day.
James, when you were collecting LJNs, I don't know, I had this feeling when I walked into Toy World looking for a new LJN that I didn't have and couldn't see them anywhere. And then I found these small packets of Hasbro's in there, and I'm hunting around, where's my LJNs? Where's my LJNs? And I picked up the packet of the Hasbro, and it didn't have the weight, didn't have the size, didn't have the same feeling to me. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I'm not paying the same price for this tiny little wrestling figure when I'm used to this big, massive, chunky thing, you know? So the feeling was, for me, was really disappointing when I first saw the Hasbro. But I've fallen in love with Hasbro's now. I've got the full Hasbro collection pretty much. But at the time, for me, I could not wrap my head around the change of it. You didn't get any sort of feeling like that?
No, to be honest with you, I don't ever remember. Look, I remember I don't remember going into a store and ever seeing LJNs. I think out of my own father's excitement, he probably bought them for me. So I didn't really have the attachment to them, but I just loved playing with them, and they were missiles. They were
what's the age of you two guys? Where are we at with age-wise?
I'm a 1980 model, so I'm 41 this year.
Yep.
Far out, 41. That's pretty old. I'm only 38. Just turned 38 last week.
Okay, so you guys are more the Hasbro era then, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think 10 years old, you're standing on your own 2 feet, but you've got a mind of your own, and I think that's where you actually hold on to more memories. As I said, I don't remember LGNs ever being in a store, but I remember seeing them everywhere. Whether it was the school playground, relatives' backyards, or relatives' houses, they were just everywhere. And
I
it was
remember seeing the LJNs when people used to do the old car boot sales or the swap meets. I remember seeing so many LJNs, people just selling them in like a garage sale and never buying them. And now you think, gee whiz, some of those would be probably worth a fortune.
For sure.
I bought my Bart Gunn Hasbro for $5 at a swap meet.
We were lucky in Australia with those Hasbro green cards.
We sure were.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I had.
I'm sure that Bart gun is really worth a lot now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before, but for any new viewers and to put it in context with the guys on, by about mid 1995, I was going to car boot sales and swap meets. They were called trash and treasure markets, and hunting the LJNs. And I got to 33. I've actually got this all documented from the time, including the codes and all that sort of stuff, and I couldn't get any more. And I was picking up some Hasbro's now and then, of course, we got the green cards. And the green cards, Hasbro's were generally $10 in Toys R Us, and they landed in Toys R Us for $10. At the same time, they landed in Kmart. This is in 96 for $5. And I was going in there, and it was early days of the internet. I'd made connections with overseas. And then the Hasbro green cards went down to $3 in Australia, which is just unbelievable. And I was buying baskets of them and swapping for LJNs on message bulletin boards. There wasn't any other connection way. Sending up a 1, 2, 3 kid carded, getting back an SD Jones, which is what I wanted. And now if you do the equivalents, people think you're mad, but they were everywhere down here. $3 Australian. So, yeah. And we've all got green cards. I've got green cards mint on card. I cut them open, and I've got green cards loose. They were just, you name it, we could get it. So,
if you could read into the future, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Up until about 2 years ago, you could still pick them up down here for about $80 to $100.
Yeah.
But then, as the collectible market grew, it now, like, I see people selling 1, 2, 3 kits for $1,200 US, and you think that's insane.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's the thing. We're all at the age now where, well, I'm in my 40s. I don't know how old you guys are. Chris is probably the baby of the group. But we're all at our age where we can afford to drop a bit of extra cash on our, going on nostalgia. And that's why I think the market's just going up. And with my own children, I've got 2 boys, only aged 3 and 1. But when they're around about that age 10 mark, excuse me, I'll be watching closely as to what they're into, and I'll be buying doubles of them just in case when they're 40 years old, the things they were into have gone through the roof as well. I think it's a generational thing. There's a few things I collect. Excuse me. There's a few things I collect. It's Hasbro's. I do collect only the Legends of Mattel, old school Ninja Turtles, because Ninja Turtles, excuse me, a frog in my throat. Old school Ninja Turtles were pre-Hasbro's, right? So that was kind of another nostalgic time for myself. And Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan was just this god growing up, and I guess those 3 genres are the thing that I pour my excess money, what limited excess money I have onto my collectibles.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've asked this question for many of the guys that have come on the show. The price of LJNs, I mean, they're skyrocketing. I mean, I'm not sure who it was. It was on one of the Facebook groups. They were selling a men on card with maybe a little bit of something's wrong with it, but not anything bad. $940 for this figure. Have you seen, I mean, what are your thoughts on the rising prices of like the LJNs and the Mattels? And I mean, do you find that astounding? Do you think it's going to keep on going? I mean, have you seen that as much as, over here in the States?
I don't find it astounding. I think, as I said, if you look at it from a logical point of view, I think we do live in a time, especially with COVID, we do live in a time where life's hard, life's busy, life's stressful. You have kids that they just add an extra level of stress and happiness, of course. We all may be going through things behind closed doors that no one else knows about, and if you can afford to, and you can afford $940 to make you feel like life's not that bad. I've got this, LJN mint on card figure. I think go for it. Is it sustainable? It's a generational thing, in my opinion. I think it will. The way I look at it is there's a big difference between collecting and investing. So if you're investing, you're in it for the flipping side of things and making a profit. But for my Hasbro's, I've invested a lot of money that I plan to hold on to. Maybe one day I will have to sell, or I'll hand them down to my boys and say, look, these are the values. They may drop in value when I'm long gone and my boys are in their 40s, because there's probably no more Hasbro fans out there. But
yeah,
I look at Star Wars, I look at LJNs, I look at what else? Vintage toys that just keep going up in value, right? If I was to sell right now, are we in a bubble? Possibly, because of COVID. But it just, again, I'd need to split the two and go, Hasbro's not an investment for me. They're a passion. However, I can see how people are buying now and, wanting to flip because they feel like they're at the top of the market, right?
Mm.
I think it's just collecting in general. I really feel like, investment portfolios are expanding into other things other than property and shares. I think collectibles and sports cards. It's another thing I collect is really, really important. I really believe that they will continue to grow or plateau or whatever they may be. But I don't think they'll drop to next to
You
nothing.
raise a really good point there, James. I think that there is a generation thing with this kind of thing. Just because we're into it doesn't necessarily mean our kids are going to be into it and their kids are going to be into it. So where it'll always be kind of collectible because it's old and it's a toy, it may not have the same sort of value to our kids and their kids as it did to us. So they're not willing to sort of pay the prices that we were paying for it back in the day. But I'm really interested to hear something about this prototype I've heard about you having. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've got a few of them. So I'll quickly go through. I guess what I'll start with is rules. I'm pretty, in terms of collecting, not investing. in terms of collecting, I have pretty strict rules. I'm not one to go out and buy everything because to me, it's mess. It's money you don't really spend. But what I'm really passionate about is nostalgia, right? So I'll share a quick story with you. So for me, when the first 6 figures I got, one of them was the Rowdy Roddy Piper Series 2 WWF Hasbro figure. And I remember getting my figure and comparing it to the one I saw in a magazine, going, why does my figure look different? Why is his face different? Why is his paint on his shirt different? And it used to annoy me. Every time I'd go out to the shops, I'd look and just to see if it was my figure that I bought was wrong. And this is as a kid, right? This is pre-internet, obviously. So every time I'd go out and go, no, all the figures are the same as mine. Why is that? And it used to blow my mind. And as I got into the Hasbros very seriously in the last probably 3 or 4 years, I stumbled across a lot of European collectors that had their hand on many Hasbro prototypes that would surface and understood the chain of events before a retail piece was released. And you got your test shots, you got your green standard tags. I don't know if you guys are up to speed with it. I'm sure LJN would have had that.
I'm learning from you here, mate. I'm hearing you.
Sure. So I'll quickly go through the process of events, and it maybe not be in the right order. So if there's any, I guess in this game there's all these know-it-alls that like to shoot people down if they get one thing out of place. So apologies in advance. For me, I love collecting, so whatever. Yeah. For me, so you had your concept artist. So you'd have an artist draw the concept, then you'd have someone make a hand-painted prototype. So a hand-painted prototype in the first 2 series or 3 series were hand-painted resin prototypes. And I'll try to combine the story and the process at the same time. And so from a hand-painted prototype, they then go to a test shot, and a test shot would just be any bits of plastic they could get together to make the figure, which would be multicolored or one skin color or whatever it may be, but they'd want to test the mechanism, the actions work. And then from there, it would go to, there's one stage I'm missing, but then it would go to ready for mass production, and they'd put it on a card like it was retail, but then it'd be a green standard tag. So a green standard tag would then go to the final.
Can I just hold you for 1 second, James? Is any of these that you've talked about a 2-up yet?
No, there you go. So a 2-up is pre hand painted prototype. So okay. 2-up they would make, so from the art, thanks for reminding me, from the artist they would draw the thing, then they'd create a hand painted 2-up, and from that they then mold the hand painted prototype, which I call a 1-up or whatever you want to call it, and then the process from there. So I'll get back to the Rowdy Roddy Piper story in a sec. Where is it? Here it is. So this here is my Rowdy Piper green standard tag.
That's the normal one, is it?
Normal one. So this is a pre-production piece, and the reason why it's a pre-production piece is that green standard tag was usually taped onto the back, and then it'll go through the final viewing. And on this, it's probably hard to see, but I'll read what it says on the back. So on the back, it'll write. So a Hasbro employee would write some edits that need to be made to the card before it went to mass production. So on this, it says, delete Rhythm and Blues reference on packaging. So Rhythm and Blues, we all know the Rhythm and Blues story.
Yep.
That was a tag team set that was pulled. So they've asked that to be removed from the back of the card. It also says... So
without that green card, is that the only difference to the item from a normal Piper card?
Or whatever corrections they've made.
Okay.
You get what I mean? So, and on there, it's got the date, it's got who's signing off on it, the engineering, the marketing person, and the quality control. And this is dated 30th of the 10th, 1990. So that's a green standard tag, and I've got a few of those. And
what's the value of something like that?
To be honest, I probably paid about £400 for this, British pounds. Okay. But I bought a British Bulldog one recently, and I paid. Actually, my wife's not listening. I probably paid, I reckon close to three grand Australian for it. Yeah. This is the British Bulldog one, Series 4.
Your wife's tapping you on the shoulder, mate. Can you just answer what she's asking?
Yeah. My wife's actually packing my bags, actually. That's a British Bulldog, and so on this one, there's no corrections on the tag, so therefore this item is approved to go to mass production. Am I making sense?
What makes it different to a normal one?
Whatever corrections needs to be on the card. So actually, I've got a Jake the Snake here one that I can show you.
So a lot of people might not know whether they've got one or not.
You have the green tag.
Yeah, it's got the green. So the green tag.
What if the green tag falls off?
Then it usually has a. Can you see that sticker on the back?
Yeah.
So there's a big sticker on there where the tag would have belonged, and usually because it's so old, would have left a big stain.
That's how you can tell.
So on this one, they've changed Hulkster copy to Hulkster. That's the only change in this card. So on the back, where does it say? Can't see where it says it. But anyway, you get the point. That's what they've changed. So
hey, James, do you want me to try and summarize it for Zash, or?
Yeah, go for it. I'm probably not doing the best job.
No, because you're talking about it in a lot of detail, and so sometimes our GN guys might not know about the pre-production process, but generally about 24 figures roughly went to this stage, and it had to get signed off by different departments internally, and so engineering had to sign off to make sure the mechanisms were working, and most 2-ups had working mechanisms, didn't they, or except for
yeah, no. They're usually a big resin prototype.
That's right. And so marketing, engineering, and a couple more that James explained there, and then go to the different departments, just a sticker on it, whack. This is not ever meant to see the light of day. Tick. Oh, get rid of rhythm and blues because they're no longer there. So that goes to the art department, goes around and around and around, and then eventually production would happen in China. And of course, some of these 24 or thereabouts remained, with employees. And so now there might only be 1 or 2 of certain figures, or only 1. There might be 10 of a certain figure. And there might be different ones because they've been rejected more than once, and another change had to happen. Extremely sought after within the Hasbro collecting community, and a lot driven by European people as well. So,
really great explanation. So I guess I'll just jump into the prototype. So the hand-painted prototype, and I guess I'll finish the story. So this here is my hand-painted prototype, Rowdy Roddy Piper. So this is a hand-painted resin prototype. If you shake the box, his head wobbles, right? So it's not really on that tight. So resin meaning, so someone's actually sat there and painted the figure. You guys see that all right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that your holy grail there? Is it, James?
Oh, I've got a few because this is my hand painted British Bulldog prototype.
And how many of these were produced hand painted ones?
I'm going to guess maybe 2 or 3 at most, because I do know. I'm only guessing, but I do know the Series 1 Akeem, there was 3, because there's 3 that's been found around the world. Actually, Chris Maddock had one of the ones here in Australia a little while ago, but that's the only one I know of that's got 3 hand-painted prototypes out there in the black market, let's call it. So I'm going to guess and say 3.
The easiest way to sort of guess the numbers is looking at the Rhythm and Blues. Greg the Hammer is
of course,
known in existence 3.
3, yep.
And because that's like the most sought after Holy Grail or Hasbro prototype, you would think if they got 3 of those that have been found, there's probably only 3 that are made, maybe 4 if you really had to redo something.
Yeah. And so just going back to the story about Rowdy Piper, so that there, and if you check, you can see his shirt and his face, they're completely different to the actual retail release. And so what I figured out later in life is that the hand-painted prototypes is what they usually would use for magazine adverts and advertising and what have you. So I can't confirm or deny, but this may be the exact one that was sitting in that magazine ad all those years ago that I was thinking, what the hell, why is my figure so different to this? So the story, and I guess this goes back to nostalgia, right? It's the story behind why you collect your pieces that is really important. That's what allows me to go, I'm going to drop this amount of cash on a figure like this because it means something to me. It's a story I can share with you guys. It's a story I can share with my kids. It's a story I can share with anyone that wants to listen. So this one here, the story behind this, and so now I guess my holy grail is that I've got 2 parts of the pre-production line before release, right? Yep. So that's the British Bulldog. Sorry, that's Rowdy Piper and British Bulldog and the Jake Series 1 prototype has never surfaced. As I said, the Hakeem has. So, the Jake...
So, not all of them have surfaced. That's really interesting. So maybe they made 1 or 2 of certain ones.
You kind of got to put yourself into the manufacturers or employees back then. They had no idea that one day there'll be 40-year-old men willing to drop thousands of dollars on toys. So they probably just threw them out. I thought, these the toy line's ended. Let's just throw them away. But then probably had someone that had kids at the time and took them under the kids. So here you go, play with this.
Mm.
Well, Matt Cardona has the story of one of the prototypes. I can't remember who the figure is off the top of my head, but somebody had given it to their child, and just the child had taken it home and played with it. And it wasn't until 25 years later that they realised that it was a one of one. Do you remember who that was? Which figure, James?
It was the Brutus Valentine. Brutus Valentine.
Brutus Valentine.
It was the Brutus the Barber Beefcake from Series 9 with the Mega Power. Yeah. Mega Maniacs. Sorry, Mega Maniacs attire and Purple Card series. So that there's actually 2 that have surfaced. Matt Cardona's got one, and I have seen one graded. And actually, the scissors, instead of being a red or a black handles, they're actually striped. Got the what do you call it? The striped handles, the red and white striped handles. So that's a very, very cool piece. And that there, I know that person has been offered $25,000+ for that, and they've knocked it back. So these pieces now, these are, I wouldn't say they're high in demand because it's not. People aren't willing to drop that sort of coin on those sort of figures. However, they do come with a hefty price tag, and that I believe will continue to grow because of the rarity and the story. I think the story behind it's very, very important. Well, I guess my rules with collecting, I don't know if you have rules, Chris, but for me, the most nostalgic time for Hasbro's was Series 1 to 4 because in Australia, I remember getting Series 1 to 3. Series 4 never was released here. And from Series 5 to 11, there were very few and far between. So there was sporadic figures that you picked up here and there. The Series 1 to 3, I remember just, as a kid, just being in pure joy, seeing them on the shelves and got them all. So I have them. I have all the Series 1 to 4 mint on card. I'm a grader. Grading's not for everyone, but for me, I love the grading process. I love the way they look in the acrylic case. And I've made it a mission to have every single figure graded 85% or above. So I have all of that done, all bar 3 figures, which is a Dusty Rhodes, probably the hardest Hasbro figure to get. He's a 75. Greg Valentine, would you believe Greg Valentine in Series 3 was the final figure I got, and I only picked that up late last year, and that was a 2-year search to find one in pristine condition. And same with Brutus, the Barber Beefcake. He was really, really hard to get.
Yeah, Brutus again. Yep. Yeah.
There you go. And, well, there's a theory behind that, right? I didn't make up this theory. It's what I've seen over the years is any peg warmers back in the day would sit there, be thrown around, shuffled around, pushed to the back.
That's right.
And therefore, to find them in mint condition now, they're kind of hard to because you can find a lot of them, but all the cards are beat up. They're just busted. So
the people trying to buy for investment, thinking I might have an investment. The collecting of toys, minting pack really started in the 90s. It wasn't really before then. They were buying Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. They were buying Greg Valentine when he's actually just at the end of his useful life. So that's a really good informative thing. And a lot of what I'm talking about, actually, I should give a plug, is covered in a new book pretty soon by one Grenville Nash called The Hasbook, and we're at the proof stage at the moment. Actually, my phone rang while I was on at the earlier of the show. That's probably the printer telling me the proof is ready. And just for you guys, Chris and James, These are just some of the test pages
Yeah,
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
that were used when I was testing Grenville's work to assess the print quality and all things like that, because the writing of the book and the researching and the design and everything that he's done is fantastic. But that, in the end, that's only half the job. The half part's actually getting it to print good. For digital, it's not a problem, but for print quality, it actually takes a long time, and that's why his book's going to really pop. And it should only be about 6 weeks now, I'd say.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, the question that I had for you, Chris and James, combined, I mean, each one of you, how many figures do you think you have? I mean, we've had people, I mean, I've seen online, I mean, grown men with wives and children have these massive collections of LJNs, of Hasbros, of Galoob, of, figures like this Arn Anderson I have. How many would you say each one of you have?
I would have between 750 to 1,000 figures. And probably 90% of mine are loose because I prefer my figures loose than in box. One, for space. Two, because then you can actually play and use them and articulate them. And then I'd say my son also probably has about 150 loose figures that he has in his collection, which is becoming a bit of a problem because I just keep buying them and he keeps playing with them, and my wife keeps telling me to stop, but he loves them, and it's probably that's probably a conservative estimate, but mine are Hasbro's Elites, Defining Moments Elites. What else have I got up there? I've got a few LJN, but tucked away, some basics. My son has all Elites and basics. So. What about you, James?
Oh, look, I was just, if you can see in the background, I've just moved house. So that shelf there, that one there, they're full of my collection, all those tubs. So I have, as I said before, series 1 to 4, mint on card, all cased up, and then the rest are pretty much loose. So I've got a box full of the classic superstar range. I've got a box full of Mattel Elites. I only collect old school guys. I don't collect modern day people. I've also got a couple of Ninja Turtles. What else? Look, I'd probably say around the 700, 800 mark. You were counting individuals. It's a lot when you say it out loud like that.
Yeah, and one of the questions, Tyler, was for you from a Facebook user. They wanted to know how many do you own?
Not near that amount. I'll tell you. I'm pretty. You talk about being behind. It doesn't compare to, that number that they just said. It's that's why I was amazed. I mean, I'm just loving hearing this conversation. I'm sitting back like you all are, just soaking up this information. And you said Ninja Turtles. I popped, man. I was a huge, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. That's what's cool. It segues like Michael Jordan sports. That's what I love. Here in the States and in Australia, don't matter what country, we all have a common interest. And that's what I love, the community with the pages we're doing, or at least I should say you all are doing. I'm just happy to be a part of it. But it's awesome. And that's the thing. The only thing I was going to ask is what's been the rarest thing? I know you touched on it that you've collected as far as a Hasbro or it could go for a Ninja Turtles or maybe a Michael Jordan thing. That goes addressed to both of you.
What's the rarest? Was that the question?
Yeah, the rarest, yeah.
Look, probably for me, I had a near complete mint on card Hasbro collection as well as the loose collection, and then I had a bit of a crisis of why am I buying these in the card when, like, I was running out of space, and I was looking at people like Skinner and like Virgil, and I was like, why do I need these? Like, I could sell these and then invest into something else and buy other figures that I didn't have, like the Defining Moments. At that time, I didn't have any Defining Moments. And I really like those. I think they're incredibly well presented. And so I end up selling probably 80% of my Hasbro mint on card figures. And the rarest thing for me now, I've got a mint Hogan in-bag mail-away Hasbro. That seems to be very popular as a collectible, especially in bag. I've got a graded 85 Purple Heart, Bret the Hitman Hart Hasbro, which with the Purple Heart and in that condition is quite hard to find. And I did have the Arcane prototype that James mentioned before, and a UK collector, I think he might have been having some tough times, or he just wanted to buy something else. He sold me a few different things, and I got it at a very good price, but then somebody else found out I had it, messaged me with a Godfather offer, and I couldn't justify not selling it, because if you're offering me like 3 or 4 times what I paid for it, I'm going to take that. It's a good deal. Like I know you talked earlier about the bubble. I have this belief that LJNs are going to probably hold value because people weren't keeping them in the 80s. They were buying them, opening them. So if you've got them now, they're going to keep going up and up and up, because that's your baseline of wrestling. Figures started on the LJNs. But I think Hasbro's, I have this feeling that what some of James's, his prototypes, his green cards, yes, they'll maintain and hold value forever. But I think the Hasbro cards, they're not going to stay as high, because there's going to come a point where people like me say, do I need Skinner? Do I need Greg the Hammer? Do I need Virgil? I think your Macho Man, your Hulk Hogan, your Ultimate Warrior figures will always be high, especially ones that are rarer to buy. Bret the Hitman Hart, Undertaker, they'll stay and maintain hold value. But I've got a feeling that things like the green cards, people lose their mind over green card Hasbros, and yet we had them in stores here. We had them in Kmart. They were peg warmers. They sat there for a year after the Hasbro line had finished, and no one would buy them. And but you talk to people in America, and they're like, we never saw them except for at special trade shows, and occasionally somebody would know a comic book store that had some, and they were paying a premium then. But here they weren't rare at all. So while I think they're probably all gone now, I think that'll eventually just sort of drop back down again.
It's just so interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's just an education. That's what I enjoy about being able to be on this show and have guests like yourselves and with David Zash and Brutus. My goodness, I call them the gurus for a reason, and great company here. Yeah.
Hey, James,
I thought you were calling us a goose, not a guru.
No, gurus, man.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call you a goose. Come on, that wouldn't be polite. Come on, yeah.
Can I ask a question for Chris and James?
Yeah.
Go for it, Brutus.
Oh yeah. So what did you guys think when with the revived Hasbro style line, the retro ones, when they came out? I mean, did they grab you, or did you give them a miss? Yeah.
No. For me,
Oh,
I did grab Diesel. I grabbed 2 Diesels just for because he was, if you know he was meant to come out in Series 12. Yeah, Series 12, the orange card series. So it was a shame that we never got him back in the day. But to see him in retro form was fantastic. The rest, no, it wasn't for me. I stayed away.
So thankfully. I've got them all. I love them because they connected back to the Hasbros of the 90s. However, I think Mattel just had a big missed opportunity. Like you see, Zombie Sailor is releasing the 5 classic wrestlers coming up. He's going to do Dino Bravo and Earl Hebner and some other guys. And I just feel like if Mattel had have focused on the legends, they would have made a truckload of money and the line would have been even more popular. When you start focusing on guys like Sami Zayn, people aren't going to want those. People don't want to have, like, that's why now already those figures, Ric Flair and Macho Man, already going up in value because people want the legends. They don't really care about your mid-card guys currently in the WWE. Maybe in the future they will, but right now that's where they missed the mark. They should have had a specific, maybe 2 current guys, 2 legends, or 3 and 3 for each series, and it would have been a lot hotter with collectors.
And the packaging was terrible.
Yeah, packaging was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sold anything I had on card when I started noticing bubbles were just sliding off, and I thought, well, I'm not going to bother keeping these because long term they're not going to last.
One last question, James. I love your T-shirt that you're wearing. I mean, it's of course the logo of the of your group. Oh, Chris, you're also wearing it. How can viewers, listeners, around the world, they don't just have to be in Australia or New Zealand or on the other side of the world, and how can are they able to pick them up? I mean, are they able to buy them and wear them with pride around the world, no matter where they are?
Eventually, it's something we are working on. We're actually working on releasing a podcast in the coming months. We're just working pretty hard behind the scenes. We're just connecting our audience via the live stream, very much like we're doing now. It seems to be going really well, and the feedback we're getting, if we can get an audio version, aka podcast, it'll kick off. So it's just a matter of time and streamlining it, and having an opportunity to launch product without adding too much to our busy plate. We're both fathers of 2 young children, so it takes up a lot of time, but absolutely, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way.
I mean, that is amazing. And Tyler, I mean, do you have anything going on? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of writing. You're doing a Tyler's Takes podcast. Anything going on that you would like to plug before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, it's actually coming up in May. There's an independent promotion called Coastal Championship Wrestling that's going to be running an event, and look for more listings on that. But the date on it's May 15th. It'll be a Saturday, and they'll have more information on their website. So that's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool.
I hope you don't have a run-in like you did last time, because you may not be back on the podcast.
I may not. I had to take a headbutt in the ring, and I'm still feeling the effects.
Yeah, I mean,
how dare he?
I mean, that guy was like 3 times your size.
Well, that's about anybody. I mean, I'm always looking up to somebody. I'm a short guy,
Yeah. Hey, Brutus.
I know in their ring, that's for sure.
I mean, he needs a good bodyguard, Brutus. You should come over here to the States and just stand up for him. But Brutus, speaking of you, do you have anything going on? I mean, with the Hasbrook. I mean, why don't you all come over and protect Tyler? Because this guy that he got beat up last time, he's kind of a big guy. But Brutus, do you have anything on your plate? I mean, besides the Hasbrook, the Hasbook. I mean, that's kind of taking up a lot of your free non-educational like booking, the writing that you do. You have anything coming up that you like to plug?
Yeah, well, so it's sort of treading water, waiting for the proof on that, and then working to the launching and the marketing. And one of the difficulties with that is that we need to find distribution in the UK rather than me just sending them over from Australia. And of course, Grenville will be handling the US, and it's Grenville's book, so he'll be leading with everything. A lot of planning going into book 2, which is the wrestling superstars that were unreleased. The great work of people like Zash and others in customs, but I'm doing a fair amount of research into that. And I've been also at the same time researching the book 3, the Jobbers book, by looking to see the chance of getting some customs looking okay for that. And because when I go and research those, I'll probably research those at the same time. Because I flip back, on this day I'll do my work, then I'll do that work. And so it's easy to handle that way. So they're all long-term things. They'll take a while.
And Zash, I mean, each and every week, I love to give you the last word. I mean, is there anything that you can leave our audience that are watching and listening? Any inspirational thoughts or?
Hell yeah. Thanks, David. I always like getting the last say in. I want to just remind everyone, there's 4 days left for the LJM for Life custom competition that they're holding. You have to get them in by Saturday. Just double check with Michael Weems to make sure I've got that info right. But I haven't started mine until a couple of days ago for the competition. So I'm trying to get mine done in one week, my custom. And I'll likely change my mind and start another one tomorrow if it's not turning out well. So, guys, don't be like me. Make sure you spend that little extra time on your custom, get it into LJM for Life, enter the competition. It's going to be some great fun. And, good luck. Just wanted to remind everyone on that one. And also one more thing. Sorry, David. I'm so sorry. Figs Down Under. Do they have custom community? Do they actually have customizers on there? And what's the deal with that?
We do. We welcome customizers into the group. We've got a couple of guys in Australia who are amazing with their Hasbros. We've got Aaron Shredder.
He's a legend.
Yeah, Peter Paulus. Aaron's all over the top. And I don't want to keep naming people because I'm going to start forgetting people who are really good at what they do.
You'll get in trouble, yeah.
So yourself
Nick
as well.
Johnson?
So, Nick Johnson. If you haven't seen Nick Johnson's work, my God.
He's coming on the podcast in I don't know, a couple of months, a couple of weeks, whatever it is. But he's a good friend of mine, Nick. He's a good man.
His Bret Hardy posted recently is as good as anything I've ever seen. So we that's the thing. Our page is about community. It's about all aspects of collecting, supporting each other, and trying to do good business. So if you want to check it out, come and join.
Can I add to that? Do we have time for me to add to that?
Oh, you have the floor. You can take as long as you want.
You can have the last say if you want, James. It's normally my job, but you take it.
Don't tell James to talk too much.
I don't have the last say, but I think for us, for Chris and myself, and for Australian and New Zealand collectors, in the bigger scheme of things, ever since we were kids and the kids before us, we've missed out on a lot down under. We really have. In terms of distribution, we don't get not even a quarter of what you guys in the States get, or the guys in the UK or the Europe get. We always miss out. And I guess if I have a vision, it'd be that we don't have to miss out anymore, that we have our own ecosystem here. We have businesses in Australia that we can constantly support and plug, that are bringing in the stuff that we desire without having to pay exorbitant shipping fees, import duty, tax, rubbish fees, and paying above market retail value for figures that shouldn't be costing that much. And, that's not just not from a selfish point of view, but it would be great to go, awesome. We know we can get that from Go Figure Collectibles, a big retailer here in Melbourne, Victoria. And that's what this community is all about too. It's about supporting one another, and rather than having to sell overseas, we can sell to one another and keep our own ecosystem thriving, just like it is around the rest of the world. So
love the work you're doing, boys. You're doing a fantastic job. You've got great vision. So really appreciate you coming on the show and chatting to all of our viewers about that. And like I say, guys, anyone watching, get on Figs Down Under and check it out. It's a great Facebook group. But over to you, David, to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's definitely been an education. The group, I've checked it out. I just joined it. Got added to it. It's a great figure group. Like you said, there's no bickering, bantering. It's just about having fun. So for the great Tyler Peters, the great Zash Man, and Brutus Valentine, and of course the guys from Figs Down Under, I am David Fine. Next week, we have a major announcement about our custom contest, LJN Custom Mania 2021. We're going to have the big reveal. Who is going to be hosting it? It's the biggest free agent in professional wrestling announcing today. Just wanted to say, tune in next week to find out, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.